Today was the first fast of the series of fasts called Bahab. 3 fasts, Monday, Thursday, and Monday. I want to recommend that everyone who's able to should fast this Bahab, and that would mean the coming Thursday, 3 days from now, and a week from today, next Monday. Everyone should fast these fasts, even if you're not usually accustomed to do so. If you're able to fast, I recommend that you do so. The reason why I think it's so important and almost obligatory for us to fast now is because of the almost daily tragedies that are occurring to our Jewish brothers in the Holy Land. What I would like to explain to you now is, what is the purpose of fasting in the face of this kind of evil? People do evil. One of the kinds of evil that we experience in this world is the evil that man perpetrates against his fellow man. Why is fasting an appropriate response to suffering? Why should we respond to suffering with more suffering? Because people are doing evil in the world and making people suffer, we should bring more suffering on ourselves and deprive ourselves from food and drink? I would like to explain to you what the sense is of fasting and what you can accomplish by taking these fasts upon yourself. When we experience evil, when we experience people doing evil deeds, whether it's experiencing your own evil deeds that you have done, or even experiencing evil deeds that other people have done, that becomes part of our consciousness. That becomes part of how we think. And we have a tendency to make sense of what we experience. And to make sense of what we experience means to accept what we experience as being right, as being okay and correct. That's why when you do a sin, when you do something wrong, incorrect, it's very important that you suffer for that sin. Why? God has no need for you to suffer. God has no need to right the scales and punish you, get back at you in revenge. The reason why it's important for you to suffer when you sin is because if you sin, if you do something wrong, then you become committed to what you've done. Because everything you do, you're committed to. On some level, you cannot repudiate something that you've done. It's a part of you. You believe in it. And you can't change it. There's one way that you could change it, though, is if you suffer from it. If you suffer from doing it, what that does is it establishes this link in your mind between that action and suffering. And it enables you to move past it and to repudiate it and say, actually, I don't believe in that because, look, that action causes pain. Now, when we see other people do evil, as like we're witness to now, we're witness to people who don't know right from wrong and don't know good from evil and kill and maim innocent people. And when we see that, there's also a tendency to normalize that. There's a tendency to think that that's part of life. It's just a mikra, it's just something that happens, and there's nothing we can do about it. And that we humans are not responsible for that. It's just the nature of the human condition that there be people who don't understand truth and don't understand good. And that's just the way it is. And if you accept that that's just the way it is, that is essentially a great heresy, because you're denying the essential goodness of all, of reality. And worse than that, you're denying agency, because you're saying that you cannot really be good, or humans cannot really be good. And if humans cannot really be good, that means that you are also accepting some evil, accepting the fact that evil is the way it is. So if you see a murder and it affects you and you don't do anything about it, you become more prone to murder. And if you're not going to murder someone, you become more inured to people suffering. It becomes something that you might accept. And that's a major problem. So what you have to do is, you have to take that knowledge that you have, that awareness you have of some suffering, of some evil, of some terrible calamity, and you have to turn that against yourself and say, it hurts. It hurts terribly. You can't normalize it. If we would respond to suffering with pleasure, if we would say, hey, okay, they're hurting people, let's party to show that this doesn't affect us. Actually, it will affect us. It's going to affect us because it's going to make us normalize this. Okay, most of the time things are happy, things are good, but once in a while things happen and we suffer. And that's a terrible theory. It's a terrible philosophy. What we have to do is we have to say, evil hurts. It hurts so bad, it hurts like not eating and not drinking. And not eating and not drinking hurts the body on the most basic, visceral level. And that's a way of establishing in your mind, that's a way of establishing to yourself, to your mind, to your neshama, to your soul, call it what you want. It's a way of establishing to yourself, fasting due to an evil that a human being has perpetrated against his fellow human being is a way of establishing to yourself on the deepest level that evil actions are unacceptable. They're wrong. They hurt. Evil actions have an equivalency with not eating and not drinking, which is the most basic human need, is to eat and drink. But in the face of evil, we refuse to eat and we refuse to drink. And by doing that, we call out the evil. So just like if you did a sin, it's appropriate for you to fast and thereby atone for your sin. What that means is you want to link your sin to your own suffering so that you sever the commitment you have to the sin. You basically rewiring your brain. You did a sin, you did it for a reason, you believed in it, perhaps it gave you pleasure, and by suffering for it, you're allowing your mind to start thinking about it differently and to move on. And similarly, when we fast because of other people's sins, which means when we fast because of evils that people are doing to us or to each other, to the world, we are in a certain sense taking their sins upon ourselves. And we're saying, look, if no one's going to atone for this, which means if no one's going to stand up and say, this is wrong, this is not an acceptable way for humanity to function. If the sinners are not going to recognize that, then we are going to. We have to do that. We have to take it upon ourselves, as it were, to atone for the sinners. We take upon ourselves the sins of the world by fasting for the evils that the world perpetrates. So an evil that someone perpetrates in the world and it affects us and it becomes part of our life because we think about it and it has some ramifications for us, we have to take that and turn that into something very specific, a very specific form of suffering. Because otherwise what we're going to do is our brains are going to smooth it over and somehow or another tell us that it's okay. And don't eat, don't drink because it's not okay. And the only way to really tell yourself on a deep level and to tell the world that it's not okay is by refusing your mouth food and drink, refusing your body basic sustenance. And we do that, and that way we sending a message and encouraging our Palestinian brothers to learn good from evil, to learn that moral evil hurts and hurts them and hurts the world and will never achieve good from evil. We need to stand up and be the symbol of that by suffering for the sins of others. That way we stand up and say, we make a statement, we make a point to ourselves first, and therefore to the whole world, that evil is wrong. Killing innocents is wrong. This is not an acceptable way for the world to function. In a world like this, we dare not eat, we dare not drink. This is why I encourage you, if you're able to take on at least the next two fasts. Even if you haven't fasted today, Monday, you can fast Thursday and Monday. Have this in mind. Think about this. When you're suffering the lack of food and drink, think to yourself, you're suffering the evil that man brings on his fellow man. It's not something that you accept. It's something that you will always only identify with pain, never normalize.